So good afternoon and welcome to the first debate at WOM Expo's virtual tech job fair. This is not a panel discussion, this is a debate. It means that it's structured dialogue, discussion, where we want to express opposing viewpoint of specific tech-related topics or issues. So there will be a fight, but structured. And my name is Marko Košiček. I'm Science Communication Coordinator at Ruđer Bošković Institute in Zagreb, and I will try to keep this structure today. We are all familiar with political debates before elections. Today, there are no elections. However, there will be a vote, so be prepared for that. Our goal today is to have an engaging, insightful discussion, exploring the benefits and consideration, choosing between employment opportunities in the Adriatic region and seeking opportunities abroad in technology industry. So the question of debate today is, which grass is greener, ours or neighbors? As with all sports event, we will start with guest team. So from abroad, let me introduce Greener Pastures team. Unfortunately, Martina Mijušković from UK is not with us today due to some unexpected familiar circumstances. But from Luxembourg, Marin Njavro is ready to convince you that the grass is greener in the neighborhood. So welcome, Marin, and applause. The home team today, home turf, is really strong and is represented by Luka Abrus and Filip Duvnjak. Hello, guys. So at the beginning, please, Marin, can you say a few words about yourself and how green is grass in your neighborhood?
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, everybody. I'm at a total disadvantage today because I am alone against two titans, one of whom I know quite well. And Luka, I don't know yet, but I've heard a lot about you. So that's no pressure there. It's actually very funny that you guys chose this metaphor of grass because I will use it quite a lot in my argumentation. I think it's actually a very good metaphor, maybe better than maybe you thought about when you actually chose it. So hi to everybody from the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, which is the only Grand Duchy in the world. Founding member of the EU, located between France, Germany, and Belgium. People often mistake it with Liechtenstein. Nothing to do with it. Liechtenstein is not really a country. Don't ever quote me on that, but it's a very, very, very small place. Whereas Luxembourg is actually 100 kilometers north, south, and around 70 east-west. So it's actually probably slightly bigger than Istria. You know, there's some space here. There's quite a lot of grass here, actually. And, you know, I can tell you sort of a funny thing. It's an interesting place because I live in this country, which on one hand has one of the most developed financial centers in the world. It's a country where they're launching, you know, satellites into space since the 80s. They were the first to do it, actually, in the world. It's a country where there's a very developed space industry. A lot of startups that have to do with space are here. But it's also a country where I can look outside of my home and on one hand, I see cows and indeed grass, green grass. And on the other hand, I can see, you know, like a NATO supply chain agency operating also out of Luxembourg. True story. So when it comes to grass, you know, it's very green here. A lot of things are green here. Luxembourg has one of the highest GDP per capita in the world also. That is something that a lot of people associate it with. Now, however, that's sort of a little bit about the country itself. Me personally, I'm a Croat as well. I left Croatia when I was 18 to study. And then that journey took me you know, through France, UK, Russia, Luxembourg, a little bit US. And when I ended up here, it was partially due to work. I started working here initially as a corporate lawyer until I realized there's an opportunity in education here. And in 2015, I was one of the founding members of the first business school in Luxembourg, where I am still today, called Luxembourg School of Business. So I will today give you a little bit of a business, but also educational perspective on this topic, because one of my arguments is that those two are very much intertwined. Now, when it comes to the debate itself, I'm aware it's a debate, so let's start. I would start like this. When it comes to the debate itself, I will use first this actual grass metaphor to kick off my argument. So first of all, this whole idea whether you should go abroad or whether you should stay, in this case, in Adriatic region, Croatia and other neighboring countries, it's really, I think it should be a very personal argument. That question cannot be answered unless you have a perspective about your own development and your own growth. And, I was thinking about the argument, and you could say that, you can be a cow in this argument. You can just graze the grass that's around you passively, and wherever the grass leads you is where you will stay. Or you can sort of be more proactive about your own development, and you can, let's say, be a farmer that's planting seeds, that's sort of controlling a little bit where that cow goes. What am I trying to say? Really, if you think about whether opportunities exist for you in a certain location, the location is always secondary. You are the driver of those opportunities, right? So Croatia is, I think, and both Philip and Luka and many others are evidence that there's tremendous things you can do and achieve in Croatia and in the region. Should I call it, in this case, in the Adriatic, because that's what the debate is all about. There are a lot of opportunities there. But there are, of course, also opportunities to go abroad, right? And when it comes to going abroad, I would put the following arguments. So first, you really need to, you need to be able to, I would say, push yourself, and you need to be able to put yourself out of the comfort zone. And to me, that's one of the strongest arguments of going abroad, wherever you are from. So it doesn't matter if you're from Croatia or you're from Luxembourg. Putting yourself out of your usual comfort zone is the first step towards, in my view, towards achieving something more significant. And it requires, again, that you have a personal philosophy about it. What is it that you want to do, and how do you want to develop yourself? When you think about your career, you cannot think and plan it as a passive observer, right? So whether or not, again, you want to go abroad, it's all interconnected with this idea that you need to take it into your own hands and move yourself out of the comfort zone. So when you look at the whole question of I'm representing the side here in the argument, I'm representing the side that, okay, you should go abroad. I would really sum it down to, first, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, exposing yourself from an educational point of view, from a professional point of view, from a personal point of view and personal development point of view, exposing yourself to something new. So you cannot hope to achieve something big by, so to speak, metaphorically staying in your mother's basement and living, in the same place where you have been for all your years. And second, tied to that is, the concept of you need to invest in yourself. And when it comes to investing yourself, really, I'm a little bit biased there, but it's really about, investing in both your education, which can be one of the drivers of you going abroad. It can be one of the drivers of seeking opportunities. So investing in your education in order to build some competencies and some skills, and really in order to broaden your personal understanding of the world as well. Through the investment in your education, you will, which in my case should be abroad, you will also open simply opportunities that you cannot even be aware of from your today's point of view. So today, you're sitting in the Adriatic. there you cannot conceive the opportunities that will open to you unless you take that step and go somewhere else. And applies same for people living anywhere else, right? If you live in Luxembourg, you cannot be aware of the opportunities that will open to you unless you go and spend time abroad. So I'm a big proponent of taking that big step, moving out of your comfort zone, and effectively taking control of your own development, of your own life, and doing that purposefully, so to speak. So that's a little bit, let's say, my initial take. It all comes down to exposing yourself to these different opportunities and creating your own opportunities.
Okay, thank you, Marin. I will try to put it in a few sentences. So go outside of your comfort zone, expose to something new, educate yourself. That will open your eyes to see opportunity, and be a driver. So don't be passive, find your way and take your opportunity. Luca, how do you respond as a home turf team?
Thanks, Marco, and nice to see you all. Nice to meet you, Marin. And is it time for responses, or should we do like a quick intro first, like just to make sure?
Intro first, but you already can if you want to respond.
Sure. So part one out of two, representing the home turf. So my name is Luka. I'm born and raised in Zagreb, Croatia, where I studied at the Zagreb University computer science. After that, I first got a few jobs in IT, working at local companies, and then landed in Microsoft Croatia, where I was working for 7 years, which was kind of a theme that I will advocate for today, which is working on global businesses, working as part of global organizations, but reaping benefits of sitting at home and enjoying your life as much as you can, with all the benefits of staying in Croatia. After 7 years at Microsoft, we started with Five, the digital product agency. That was in 2010. I was a co-founder and CEO of Five. After 12 years, we exited with the company, sold it to a company called Endava, which is a global company as well, where I'm continuing on the same path, where I'm working on global businesses out of Croatia. My current role is I'm managing a part of a US business for Endava. I agree I understand what Marin is saying, and of course, just not keep it on the friendly side. I'll try to go devil's advocate on and try to spark up some discussions. What my career has shown to me is that you can actually work on really global stuff, really impactful things, get an enormous exposure to smart people, education, and everything like that by sitting in Croatia, but working a lot with the global companies and traveling. Travel was the key ingredient that we've employed over the past 20 years of my career, which was to travel at every opportunity that we could get, expose yourself to other markets, other people, other cultures as much as you can, both on the business front, or on the personal front as a tourist, but more important here on the business front. And by doing that, you can actually have the best of both worlds. Okay, we can always conclude it. Everyone has to decide for themselves what is the best, but we've managed to build a couple of global businesses out of Croatia by employing a lot of travel. I'll save some of the arguments for later.
Okay, thank you, Luca. Philip, you can follow by introduction about yourself, and maybe also put some new arguments in debate.
Okay. I have a couple of arguments. Just a short introduction. I'm kind of in between, although I do live now in Croatia, based in Zagreb, but I'm kind of in between because I spent quite a lot of time living abroad. So just a short introduction. I was born and raised in Croatia. My father was a diplomat, so we moved a little bit outside, mainly German-speaking countries. So I lived 3 years in Switzerland. An unrelated fun fact I like to mention is I went to school with Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator. It's always interesting for everybody to hear that. Then we moved back to Croatia. So I finished high school and the same university as Luka. here in Croatia, electrical computing pretty much. After my own university, I moved to Munich, Germany, where I finished my second master also in computing. And after my education there, I stayed short in the academy, but then moved abroad, started my own company and started working in the industry, mainly in the IT business. And I spent in total roughly 3 years in Switzerland, 3.5 years in Switzerland, and 11 years in Germany. And maybe about a year and a half ago, I decided to move back to Zagreb, Croatia. Then maybe a couple of things then just to reflect what the guy said. So Marin, absolutely, I agree with him. Moving out abroad to a different country outside the Adriatic is definitely getting out of the comfort zone. It's not easy financially, psychologically, in general. It's a complete different mindset. If you ask me, maybe I think 5 years ago, I would advocate more, to move out, to get out of your comfort zone. But today I also understand it's not for everybody. And it somehow is, I would say, maybe all the other thing, what Luca mentioned is the times have changed. I think 15 years ago, the possibilities were not the same as today. Today, also in Croatia, you can work internationally much easier. You have access to incredible education, people, companies, which was maybe not so, it was pretty much available, not as easy as it is today. So I think it has also changed a little bit, especially from the entrepreneurship side. It's also kind of shifting and improving, but there's a lot I would also say here. I'll save a lot more, let's say, topics for the debate later, but that's a short introduction.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll try to summarize what Luca and Philip said. So although you are sitting at home, you are no isolate. You are part of global community, and we heard that traveling and global exposure is something what you have to do. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in Luxembourg or you sitting in Croatia or Adriatic region in general. So these parties, I think, we have agreement that is important. But today there are many more opportunities from sitting at home compared to what was before. So Marin, what is your response to that? Why should we go today now abroad and be localized somewhere else if we can be competitive with all others sitting from our own chair at home?
Thank you. I mean, the difficulty of this today is that it's kind of a non-debate. I think we are all very well aware of that. The reality, and if you want to hear my honest opinion, is I actually think Croatia today, and it's going to be more and more true with time, is arguably going to be one of the most interesting places in Europe where you can live and do actually global business. Why? Because one of the huge assets of Croatia that we're not even aware, and mainly we're not aware because I think as a country we're too focused on ourselves and our own problems, is the fact that we have a population where everybody speaks English very well, and then a lot of people speak another language as well. So this is something where Luxembourg built their own, I mean, huge part of their sort of success story belongs to the fact that you go out on the street and people, finding someone who speaks 5 to 6 languages is pretty normal. It has 3 official languages, French, German, and Luxembourgish. Those are the administrative languages. Everybody speaks English, and then 30% of population is Portuguese. So what am I trying to say? Being super connected, and as Lucas said, being one plane, one flight away from it, 3 flights away from literally anywhere in the world, like 2 technically, but 3, if you really need to go to Antarctica, then you need 3 flights probably. That just puts you in a whole different position. It puts you in a position where you can build almost any kind of business out of Croatia. However, there are always then the other side of that coin. There's always the challenge, right? And one of the challenges, and this is the part where I'm now drawing back to my initial argument, is when you are exposed to global business, then you're going to be also exposed to another shock, which is the competition that comes with that, right? So then you're not anymore, you cannot anymore have your rhythm where, where you read your news from Jutarnyi list and you think that's what's going on in the world, or I don't know, where you're doing meetings over 3 hour long coffees, and I don't know what. You simply need to be able to adapt to both the competition and to business practices elsewhere. And as Lucas says, it's critical to be able to travel there. I fully understand what he said, because I think if you guys probably didn't have and didn't invest in that travel component and being exposed like that, it wouldn't work. So you cannot do it just completely by being a virtual guy. I mean, unless you're doing some, job that can be pretty much done by a machine. So my point is, Croatia is becoming very interesting. It's a great place to live. It's the infrastructure is good. The internet's good. Everybody speaks languages. That's great. There are so many advantages, but people there need to become aware that you guys that are thinking of going to the greener pastures will be exposed to merciless competition, right? And one of the personal advice there that I always give also my students is, don't forget about the idea that you think, you deserve something or something belongs to you, and you're like, the world, life is difficult for you. Like, be aware that if you're going to compete globally, it's going to be tough, right? You're going to be exposed to people that are going to sacrifice more than you. They're going to work harder than you. Many of them are smarter than you, but very few people have all of those components, right? So somebody can maybe work hard but not be creative or not know the language, etc. So you need to be able to find yourself, find your niche in this huge global sort of competitive market. And I think that especially works for technology businesses, but you guys, the other two speakers, will know much better about that.
Okay, thank you, Marin. Philip, Luca, your contra-arguments. So we have a new moment here. So global versus local games. So staying at home can sometimes be, I'm in my neighborhood and I'm doing business in my neighborhood. However, you are not doing that, but that is maybe also something what we have to have in mind when we talk about going abroad or stay at home.
I mean, when thinking about the reasons, just the reasons, I mean, things, what Marin said obviously stand, because he's making an argument for our side as well. But I'd just like to continue what Philip said, is that things have really changed over the last 15 years. 15 years ago, if you wanted to start a business, starting it in Croatia, or I guess anywhere in the Adriatic region, was super hard. There was no money, there was no financing, there was no skill, there was no education, there were no examples, there were no success stories, there was no inspiration. Now, these days, like it's amazing, like the companies that have been created over the last 15 years, the successes they've had, individuals that have come out of these organizations as experience that you can talk to, you can learn from, and so on. So one of the arguments was always the economic opportunities, maybe your career development, like where should I go? Right now in Croatia, I mean, and there's many countries in Slovenia and in Serbia, there are super successful companies that are like leaders in their industries globally. Obviously, Infobip, Rimac are the most common examples, but there are dozens of startups that are raising serious money. They are building world-class products out of Croatia, and they are being run by the local folks. There are 6 or 7 VCs that are active in Croatia right now that you can raise your money from, for example, or you can get a job at, or but meaning there's a lot of movement happening here. There are companies coming to Croatia like Google, I mean, obviously through Photomath, and so on. So regarding career opportunities in Croatia, things have substantially changed over the last 10 to 15 years, and it makes it, to get a real experience that is globally worth a lot. You can get it in Zagreb, Split, Ljubljana, Belgrade, and anywhere else. The point there is still, this cultural growth, where if you're stuck in Croatia working with Croatian companies and only dealing with Croatians, you'll get pretty limited. So I was always advocating that if you can, you should go to get an education somewhere else, because that is something obviously Martin knows a lot of. Croatia doesn't, it's super hard to compare Croatia to other countries, and that is something that I think we're losing currently, and that might have a lot of impact on us in the future. But anyway, not to ramble too long, I'll let Philip jump in and continue the argument.
No, I fully agree with Luca and with Marin both. So, I mean, in general, what I can tell you is, let's say, one large advantage for the greener grass outside is definitely you will learn different cultures, mentalities, religions, the work ethic. So I have a small disclaimer to make. I'm really talking about German-speaking countries. So it's maybe very different to, Spain or Portugal, but I'm generally talking about German-speaking countries, so Germany and Switzerland. Work ethics is different. There's no coffee culture. The working hours are in general longer. So this definitely stands. But living abroad, also what Luca said, it will simply open your mind. You'll have more understanding for different ways people were raised up, religions, mindset, and so on. Another benefit for the let's say remote turf is general better infrastructure, at least Munich, health and social insurance, faster, better transportation, like higher standard. These all things, come into place. But then a couple of benefits that the reason why I moved back, I could tell you, for example, is first of all, again, a disclaimer, we are all pretty much, Luca and I are lucky to be working in the IT industry, which is really rewarding financially. But for example, the culture is very different. So here, what I like about the culture is, in German-speaking countries, Monday to Friday is mainly for work. So people have very little after-work activities. Friday evening, Saturday are for socializing, Sunday is for rest, and then you go into the week. So very, very rarely, it's up to the individual, but I would find it very hard to kind of socialize inside during the work week. Where in Croatia, people are super social. It's normal that you after work, you go for a drink, a beer or a tea. So this is very standard that you would do here. There's no spontaneity, at least my kind of experiences. There was very little spontaneity outside. So it took me very often 3 to 4 months planning something on front just to meet up with a couple of friends. So in general, I would say here in the Adriatic, people are much more spontaneous, which again, this is personal, this fits me much better. And another point is, again, being lucky working in the IT industry, we can work for external, let's say, companies from all over the world. Simply bang for the buck here, you would get what the US would say, bang for the buck. Life is cheaper here. You can simply have a better life quality, earning the same amount of money pretty much. That's also one big aspect, for example, why living in Croatia is, let's say, I would say not better, but in general, easier than it would be living outside. Of course, not to mention family and friends. And something very important for me, what I noticed when I did live outside is, it's like, it was at one point, one of the most important factors is I just analyzed how much do I laugh in average per week. And I noticed when I'm in Croatia, I just laugh a lot more, simply because when I socialize more, I see my friends more, I see my family. And in general, this like couple of minutes more a week means like a big difference, makes a big difference. So these are just some of the points that I would say regarding kind of what are the benefits living back home and why I am enjoying it so much. And not to mention, I think one last thing for me, which also ends up to be quite important, is the weather. I love it when there is more sun. I don't know, Marin, for you. I mean, just taking a bike to work, a day makes a big difference for me. And like these little things in the end, end up being quite important when they sum it up. So this is something,
I want to,
a couple of arguments.
I want to say something just very briefly to be precise about the debate. So I would never argue that, you know, grass is greener somewhere else indefinitely. So this entire debate, my whole argument relies on the fact that I think going abroad for a certain period of time is an incredibly accelerated personal development. But I definitely believe, between you and me, I mean, you know, I definitely also one day hope to go back. I mean, the element of being able to have that experience and then take it back home and then, you know, operate in that environment locally, I think that's really interesting. So I'm not talking about or trying to sell the idea of, you know, just leave. And I actually think a lot of in Croatia, there's this whole debate about people leaving. At least from what I can see, both in the media as well as some people that I know. So big disclaimer, this is just related to my personal experience. I think a lot of people leave without having thought it through and for wrong reasons, right? When you look at it on the face value, oh my God, yeah, salary in Luxembourg. Let me give you an idea, by the way. Salary in Luxembourg, it's the highest minimum wage in Europe other than Switzerland, I think. But so the legal minimum wage is around 3,000 euros. It's slightly higher now. Now you might think, wow, that's great. Well, but then you come here, you take that step, and then you realize, wait, my rent is 1,800 euros. Okay, great. So I'm left with like 20 euros per day to feed myself and do the rest. So, you know, you need to do your calculation. This one-way emigration out of Croatia, I think that's a problem. I think it shouldn't be like that. But going away to develop yourself and to be able to then come back and actually have a competitive advantage over people that didn't do that, I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think we're all on the same page here. Just also that you don't get me wrong. I fully agree with what Marin said. I do not regret living outside of Croatia. If I would have to make the choice again, I would again choose the same thing, to move out, to work on myself, develop, get some other, maybe, you know, learn a different language. I think if I did not move out, I would be a very different person today. Yeah, but I fully agree there. But again, now I really enjoy my life in Zagreb, and yeah, I'm happy I moved back.
Okay, thank you. Now I will jump in, since we all agree about the major topics. However, we would like to hear the opinion of you guys who are watching this. So in your section of pools, you have a new question. So whose grass is greener, A, home turf, or B, greener pastures? So please vote for yourself. As a moderator, while we are waiting to see the result, as a moderator, I can say that I'm quite disappointed, because it was really polite. You know, we used to have these really dirty political debates where everybody is fighting. They're really impolite, don't think about arguments, just telling their stories. So this was really shocking for me. However, there were some low kicks from Philip. He put some emotional parts, how often he smiles, the sun moment of Adriatic region, which is really good advantage compared especially to the northern countries, and of course our long coffees and this easygoing lifestyle. So let me see. At the moment, we have 63%, 67% for home turf and 33% for greener pastures. So it means that you would like to stay. So Marin, we have to work harder a bit in the second part, which will be more roundtable discussion. So it's not necessary that you now taking your starting position. We will discuss more broadly. Of course, if audience has something to ask you, feel free to put your question in the chat or Q&A pool. I will try to monitor them during the second part of discussion and put also those questions on the table. So we talked about migration in the first part, just thinking about going from our region to abroad. However, there are some people who are also coming to our region. So this migration part, or mobility, if you take it in European context, is a two-way street. And there are many people who are coming now in our region, finding a good position for themselves. What are your experience in your sector, Filip and Luca?
I can start. Obviously, any company that can attract experienced senior talent to move to Croatia deserves a lot of praise, and you know, it's an enormous enormous success if we can actually attract people from Western Europe or the United States to come over to Croatia just because of the job opportunities. Unfortunately, there aren't as many examples as we would want them to be. But you know, I know a few, and I personally know a few, and they always, you know, end up not regretting the just because of the arguments that Filip said, just the quality of life and everything that goes with it. But I think that the bringing that kind of talent to Croatia significantly raises our competitiveness, which is something that we didn't, you know, which is I think a big argument in this discussion. And the question is like, can you really be competitive in Croatia? And are you really, you know, can you be on top of the world by living in Croatia? And I think I always quote it. I think Julius Caesar said that he would rather be first in this village than second in Rome, which kind of told more about his ego and that he wants to be on top. But you know, we were joking that we were always taking a different stance where we would rather be, you know, the second or third or 50th in New York than first in Croatia. And that's why we, you know, want to become a global business and build global businesses out of Croatia. And that kind of competitiveness where you're actually exposed to foreign talent or people outside of your circle of education, of companies and so on, significantly improves the quality just of work, of job, of everything that's happening in Croatia. So to sum it up, unfortunately, there aren't as many examples as you shared, but the people who are coming to work in Croatia to work on those in this top industry on the top positions are significantly contributing to all around them, and I would be super pleased to work alongside experienced, strong talent like that in Croatia.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Those questions are deliberately open-ended, so we can go on rambling about whatever you want, Filip. So it's everything is allowed.
Thing, maybe I'll throw something maybe spicy a little bit. So I mean, I'm being entirely honest here, and what I also one thing I know, I mean, just living quite a long time abroad, and I agree with you, Luca. We don't see a lot of foreign talents here, but from the ones that I do know that had moved here, very often it's not easy. So something that, you know, and this is something that you learn, especially when you live outside. I love the Croatian mentality and the mindset, but we are still quite conservative and we are not super welcoming. It's also changing now recently, but we are not super welcoming for anybody to come and kind of integrate into kind of, you know, our society easily. So that's also, I think, something which might be why we don't see a lot of them. I mean, everything is shifting now to more internationalization, but still there's definitely a lack of international talents among us, even in the IT industry, at least that I see that move to Croatia. What do you think, Luca? You have quite a lot of experience.
No, I agree. And we're not an easy country to move into unless you're lucky enough that you are working in a very small circle of people. But everyone eventually will deal with landlords, with government institutions, with other parts of the country that are not as organized and law-driven or logic-driven even in a way. So yes, it does require a lot of culture, you know, appropriation or just adjustments to be able to thrive in Croatia as a foreigner, especially without the knowledge of the language. But again, it is easy because of the language. I mean, there's a very small language barrier because literally, you know, people on the street or people in every shop speak English. But if you have company support to help you over those first couple of months until everything gets settled, hopefully that'll, you know, those things can be resolved, because something that is innate to us, Filip, Marin, and Marco, that how we, you know, swim through the institutions and how we get things done in Croatia. You know, if we manage to pass this knowledge around or document it or formalize it, then it can be easier for other folks to follow.
took us 45, half an hour, a bit more than half an hour to touch the word bureaucracy, which is the word which very frequently destroy our plans or shift us in the other direction. Regarding this mobility of movement, changing countries, Marin, in your case, probably many people are coming to Luxembourg. You mentioned it's really small, so probably there's many people coming there, be some time and move forward. What are your experience? What they say? How they swim in this movement along EU?
Yeah. So Luxembourg is a place 700,000 inhabitants, of which maybe there's 200,000 to 300,000 actual Luxembourgers. The rest are people that have become Luxembourgers through migration. 35% of population is Portuguese, by the way, but second generation. So it's a place where effectively, I like to joke, finding a real Luxembourger is like finding a leprechaun, right? You really need to go and try to find one, and if you do, you get a pot of gold. But there's one thing that they figured out really well. And there's one thing that plays into their attractiveness globally, and they're renowned for that. And it's the understanding of the state, what their role is in creating this environment. So Luxembourg, for example, is known for two things. First, if you do business here, it is very easy to get to the right people. Okay, so if you are an international investor, if you need to, it used to be ridiculously easy. Now it's a little bit different. So, but 20 years ago, if you needed to see a minister, you call and you tomorrow have a meeting in the ministry and you discuss whatever you need to discuss. Today, it's different, but still the government is very open. Okay, that's number one. And number two, which I think Croatia has really a lot to improve in without getting political about it, is really the bureaucracy. So it's not even about bureaucracy. So the bureaucracy is not problem in itself that you, for example, need to file a lot of paperwork. It's not about that. But in Luxembourg, the bureaucratic apparatus is relatively friendly towards you. Okay. So, for example, the way the state is set up is not, in a repressive way. If you forget to file your taxes, the tax, whatever authority is not going to come barging in your door and treating you like a criminal. They're going to send you a little letter. You're late. Maybe you have a deadline here. You can talk to people. If you're starting a business, you feel like this bureaucratic apparatus is actually consists of humans. Whereas in Croatia, to be honest, even for me, and I'm terrible with bureaucracy, actually, it's very often like the system is more, less humanized. Like you don't even often know who you need to talk to about what. The rules are sometimes counterintuitive and contradictory even. So to be frank, it has improved a lot. That's from what I can see from the outside, but Luca and Philip will definitely know better, but I assume it has improved a lot. So when it comes, I guess my final sort of point here is, the state in Luxembourg is set up with a clear goal to make it easy for businesses to operate. It's not perfect, it's never perfect, but it functions really well, and it's one of the key competitive advantages of Luxembourg. It's one of the key reasons why investors want to be here and why businesses come here. So it's not a negligible element at all.
Okay, one additional moment, what changed recently is that you're not necessary to be physical located at your job. So after COVID-19 pandemic, this home office version of working is become more and more popular. So traditionally we think, okay, my job is in Zagreb. I have to live in Zagreb since I have to be close to my office. However, now working from abroad, that things change. How is visible in your situation, and is it that new normal, something what will became more frequent, or is something what can be supplementary use? For example, you should be located there, but you can work from home certain days in a week.
Who wants to go? I can go.
You should go. You run a co-working space,
Yeah.
so you're the most knowledgeable here.
Thank you. Yeah. Again, in the IT industry, this was also kind of a standard already before. Not as much as it is today, but it was quite often that you would have. Now, today, after the pandemic, I'm not sure now the numbers, but I think almost 80% of the people work in general at least one day from home. So it really became the new normal. I think it's here to stay. Although I am still an advocate for kind of on-site work, and I think there are some benefits also of working on-site. Not full-time, I would always say, but full-time remote is something that, for example, I would not advocate. I think it has some advantages from my experience. So, but definitely partial homework is I think is definitely a step forward, and I think it's here to stay. Yeah, that's in short.
Thank you. Does anybody wants to add something?
I mean, I can add that's after the initial excitement about remote work that happened in maybe like 2022, where we figured out that actually people can work remotely, something that IT industry has seen obviously for the last decade at least. Now we're seeing a whiplash of these decisions where companies are actually inviting people back to the offices, not because, as some would say, like we are paying for rent or whatever the reasons, there is office space that is empty. It's not. It's actually the culture of the companies and just the culture of work and working together has been changing. So same as Philip, I wouldn't advocate like fully remote work, although it is something that is very interesting for people who travel a lot. But if you can manage to combine that either like 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 1 week a month, 1 month every quarter, I think that's a top the top spend that you can probably allow. Something like that where we're coming into the office should be enough, at least what we see right now, to manage the bare minimum of the company culture. But completely honestly, we've seen that the company culture has deteriorated significantly since COVID hit and with all of the remote work. And I understand, as a business owner, I mean, I previously was a business owner, I could see the arguments obviously for remote work. I loved it. I still practice it, but the company cultures have really shifted from teams to individual contributors and people who are just submitting their work at the end of the day. And I'm not even talking about the actual amount of hours worked. That's irrelevant. I mean, we obviously in our industry, we just measure the impact and the effect of work, and it is different than it was years ago. So we're now kind of in a limbo where trying to combine and keep everyone happy, where we obviously have employees that don't want to come back to the office, and we have employees that simply want to work exclusively from the office because they can't get any work done outside of the office. So the current not the risk, but the kind of the challenge is just how we can meet both of those types of people and help them coexist under the same team leads or teams and companies.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Martin.
No, I can just say, because I have both the work and educational perspective. Obviously, when the whole thing hit the fan, and for a moment people thought like, wow, look, this actually kind of functions, we could do it indefinitely. In that situation, which is extreme, it worked. But once things relaxed, as we all see, I think it became clear that it's difficult to build this hybrid culture in any company. If there are certain companies which continue to do fully remotely, but it's a completely different setup from start. But companies that have physical presence, it became very difficult for them to sort of continue building, let's say, this hybrid culture. And we saw it as well in education. I mean, first there was this enthusiasm that, oh my God, now this is the end of universities, everything's going to be online. and now it's clear not at all. I mean, back in 2012, people were saying Coursera is going to replace universities and online learning is going to be the main thing. It's definitely here to stay. Just like working from home, half a day a week is there to stay probably as well. There are certain benefits to that, but I definitely think, going forward, at the end of the day, you will never be able to replace the impact that you can have on individuals physically when talking to them, when being around them. You will always be at a disadvantage if you're the guy behind the screen, like on a permanent basis.
Okay, so we can conclude in this part that it's important to really be in the country where your work is, and this remote working place is something what is good, benefit in certain ways. So we got one question which is dealing to that. So what facilities and infrastructure can local authorities and educational sector provide to increase the attractiveness of the Adriatic region for professionals? So we are coming back to the main topic, how to attract experts here.
Maybe I can say something also here. I mean, I still have a company in Germany, and I have companies or co-owned companies in Croatia. And I think this also, as some other things, it also has improved in the last couple of years. There are different types of companies now. They introduce simplification of all of these kind of things. So I think this is also improving. The processes sometimes are still complex, but digitalization of the systems also works really well. So, I mean, I can just give you a kind of concrete example. So I had one startup also in Germany, and just Germany is not at all a startup friendly country, or in general having a company there. So I mean, Luka, he has a successful exit of, and you did it, I assume, here in Croatia. But for example, in Germany, if you would sell your company, you would pay over 50% of the taxes. I regularly paid 60% of the profits to the country. So this is completely normal in Germany to pay over 60% of profits to, which here in Croatia is 20%, but compared to 60, this is really nothing. So, and then again, you have different types of companies or where you can optimize taxes fully legally even more. And this is, I think, a big advantage is also moving to be simpler and simpler in general. So I would say from this perspective, Croatia or the home turf is also becoming more and more attractive. Okay. I don't know, you guys, if you have anything to say. Marin, how is it in Luxembourg? I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. A huge misconception people have about Luxembourg is that it's a tax haven, and if you own a business here locally, your corporate income tax rate is 35%, so almost double than Croatia. Salaries, the weight, so to speak, on the salaries of taxes is slightly lower than Croatia, but not too far. Let's say 35% of the salary is sort of goes to the government for social, security and all. The advantage is that also when you see the services, on the other hand, provided by the public sector, you're happy to pay that, right? So there is I think you're totally right. There's a limit where people are okay, but 60% is just crazy, right? I mean, you're effectively working for the government and you're a public employee. That's crazy. So I think, but the question I think was regarding sort of what facilities the government has to provide or something like that. I have a very simple take here, and I'll give you a Luxembourgish example, what they do wrong. Luxembourg, by the way, is also not really a startup country. They would like to become one. It's much more corporate and banking and all of that. I think the government should give a good legal framework, simple legal framework, and just stay out of people's way. That's really what I think. Here, they're trying to really go a step further. They're building a lot of these sort of, for example, what Philip, you are doing as a private individual here, to an extent, government is trying to do that. They're doing these sort of startup hubs where they're, trying to get entrepreneurs together, but it's run by guys who have a public service mindset, and it's not really very entrepreneurial. In my view, doesn't work very well. I hope none of them are listening to that. So I think, the answer is very simple. Less government, more simplicity is very good for entrepreneurship.
So
before you jump in, just to add what guys said, I hope, and I'm maybe stepping into Martin's territory here, but attracting businesses to Croatia is, it's a mission impossible. There are countries that are smarter, faster, and better positioned than us at the moment. We should do it because just for ourselves, but attracting businesses to Croatia is a bit hard. Except for the reason that Philip said, but there are other countries that allow those tax setups. One thing that I think we're missing a huge opportunity is getting people to come to Croatia while they're students, like to give them education in Croatia. In the 70s or whenever, during the Yugoslavia time, there were a lot of people coming from other countries to get their education in Yugoslavia, in Croatia, and in Zagreb. And right now, I know Algebra is doing a lot of good things on that front. I know Fed is doing things on that front. I assume a lot of colleges are getting a lot of talents outside of Croatia, and that is something that just growing those quotas, setting up the how do we pay for colleges, and just reinventing this system might help us attract 5%, 10% of student population to be outside of Croatia, which will in turn, a lot of those people will fall in love in Croatia, start a new business with friends from college in Croatia, become residents and contribute to the economy if we get them to come to the university to Croatia. And that can be like something general, where we just have a good setup, good financing models and adequate education, or it can be like really niche studies like artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, whatever. I mean, we can come up with different topics that would probably attract folks to come study specific topics, obviously tied to the local businesses in Croatia. And I think that is a channel that we are not currently as a country. There are, as I said, a lot of great individuals, and Marin knows from firsthand, I assume, and Algebra and others who are doing great stuff to attract students, but it's individual efforts. It's something that if we manage to institutionalize or just get a government support around that, would see our country do a slight turn in the next 5 to 10 years.
This is, if I would like to step in, and Luka, you're on the point. This is, I'll give you now a double perspective, Croatia, Luxembourg. So some of you maybe know, but we have a sister school, let's say, in Croatia, which is much older than Luxembourg School of Business. It's ZSEM, Zagreb School of Economics and Management, or in Croatian, Zagrebačka škola ekonomije i management. We are probably today the institution that receives most international students, definitely in terms of proportion to the size. Around 400 students every year from 30 plus countries come to study in Croatia. And over the last 20 years, we have seen exactly what Luka just mentioned. Effectively, there's a two-tier strategy to attracting talent. And here now I'm connecting to Luxembourg. This is something I'm explaining also to people here, to the local authorities, because for them, believe it or not, it's something very new. Luxembourg didn't have a university until 20 years ago. So the public university was created only 20 years ago, whereas in Zagreb, it's like 500-year-old university. So there's a two-tier strategy to attracting talent. One is you're trying to attract professionals that have already, that let's say are at some mid to senior level of their career. That's extremely difficult and expensive because they're moving families, they're moving lives, they need to have a secure financial package. I mean, it's a huge risk, especially to a country like Croatia. So, I mean, that is probably impossible / exceedingly difficult to do. In Luxembourg, they do it a lot, but it costs tremendously. People do it when they will earn, I don't know, 400,000 euros, and then they feel comfortable, okay, I will make that move. So it's an extremely expensive talent acquisition strategy. The best one, and the one that actually has the strongest long-term roots, is really the one where you are attracting students. Students are young, they're hungry, they're motivated. hungry for experiences, hungry for, you know, building something new. And today more than ever, what we notice is that students today, they don't even care so much only about money. They want to make some kind of impact. So getting those people for their studies, you effectively, every single student that came to Croatia, to ZSEM, you can think of them as an ambassador of the country. Some of them continue to live here. They have families here. We have also a lot of Croatian students now who did the other way around, right? We have students living from Taiwan to Mexico to Argentina to Japan. So it's an incredibly powerful way to leverage, you know, talent and to attract talent. And it's actually a relatively cost-efficient way to do it as well, because they pay to come and study. They bring their lives here, they consume, they you know, need an apartment to stay. So it's actually a net income for the country if you look at it. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. There are certain cases where we do it well, but funny enough, it used to be done much better in the old days, you know, to the point that in my life and in my career, I have more than once met people in really random parts of the world. My favorite example is I was in 2011 in Jordan. I was for 3 weeks between Lebanon, Jordan, and Israel. And I was in the desert in a bus with the Bedouins, like literally. It was me and a friend of mine. Everybody else was, you know, a Bedouin. And we were speaking in Croatian, and we thought like, haha, you know, we're these cool foreigners. And I get a tap on the back, and a guy with like completely covered up, he tells me like in Croatian, "Momci, odakle ste?" And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Essentially, the guy studied medicine in Belgrade, you know, 35 years ago. And okay, it's not Croatia, but let's say it's the Adriatic region. And then, you know, I met people from all over the world that did their studies back 30, 40 years ago. And it's an incredibly powerful, you know, generator of talent. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now I would bring to the beginning to approach our conclusions. So today people are not dependent only on the workplace. We hear that you can move, you can choose between different options, but they are not motivated only about salary, but the whole package. So these opportunities for family, for personal growth, for professional growth, for competition, if you take also that part. So you have to make a balance between everything and decide what place is the best for you. So you all three make your calculation and you decide to be where you are. So my question is, what have to change you to decide to relocate? So, for example, Marin from Luxembourg and Philip and Luca to move from Croatia or more general from this region.
Maybe Philip, you start.
What would have to change? So, I mean, I honestly, it would be very hard for me to say that I want to move. So what I am considering, quite honestly, I'm considering a kind of half-half, living abroad a little bit more, let's say, you know, 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 months a year, and then living in Croatia the remaining time of the year. This is something I'm currently considering, and this is my main focus, my main goal is exactly what Marin mentioned at the beginning. I still want to continue working. I still want to step out of my comfort zone. I still want to meet new cultures, see different, you know, parts of the world, kind of, you know. And this is also something just this very personal exploration wise. But as life, as kind of, you know, just having, living a normal life, I think Croatia is amazing right now for me. And it's really working well. So I'm mainly chasing the sun and the nice weather. So in the winter months, I'm planning to maybe move out somewhere warmer. But other than that, I'm super happy right now. The other option, what could potentially be, is if you although we did mention in the beginning it's changing, but for example, raising money is still easier outside abroad, and this is something potentially where you would want to move out, try to raise money or kind of acquire better talents, or as you move globally or having bigger mega products, this is definitely something, a big advantage if you would be somewhere on premise. San Francisco, I'm just giving examples, but kind of where closer really to where the entrepreneurship scene is. Okay, Luca, you maybe.
I mean, two things. One is just the business opportunities. If I were to start a new business completely, or actually not if I'm starting a business, but if I want to expand it. So, actually, I wanted to move out of Croatia in 2020 with my family. We had an operations in New York. We had a team of, I don't know, 15 employees in New York, where I felt that for the development of my business, it was smarter at this point to move to New York and spend a couple of years there to expand the business further and grow it faster. Month after our decision, after we communicated to everyone else, COVID hit, and so we didn't move. So we ended up staying in Croatia. But I think like a need to expand the business significantly and then going like for 2-3 years to do it, I think that might be one of the reasons why I would change, while still keeping Croatia as my residence where I live, but maybe relocating for a limited period. The second thing would be just the deterioration of the quality of life in Croatia, just in general, as Philip said, friends, family, just the closeness of everything, quality of life, a bang for bucks, as Philip has eloquently put it. So those things, I think Croatia still wins when I compare myself to my friends in New York. Obviously, there are a lot of different benefits, which I now try to recoup by traveling a lot, and that's it. So but those two things, like significant deterioration of quality of life in Croatia and significant opportunity to expand the business by living, like spending 2-3 years abroad.
And what about you?
So in my case, what initially led me out of Croatia was education. It was I wanted to, as I said before, I wanted to sort of expose myself to something different, and that I'm quite happy I did as well. Today, when I'm in Luxembourg, it's my personal choice also that I will go for the foreseeable future where the business leads me, right? And currently it's here. And I see myself as at the end of the day, as a Croat, and I see, my so to speak, operating theater or place of work as wherever required, so to speak, right? Because at the end of the day, one of my biggest, and this I will never forget, one of my biggest motivators after I left for my studies to continue doing that was, you realize you're just as good as anybody else, and you can do absolutely anything. I mean, the level at which we put sort of limits on ourselves, and I think in Croatia it's also culturally, there's this element that it's always better abroad, and like everybody knows better. There's a kind of a complex there in many countries, not just in Croatia. To be frank, Luxembourgers, they have the same thing sometimes. When I was exposed to these, in, let's say, international experience, I realized, like, wow, I mean, I can actually do whatever I want to do. I'm just as good, if not better, than most people that I sort of have encountered. And then, you take it from there. You go wherever you need to go, so to speak. While, of course, always making, I have a family, and, I'm not going to just tomorrow move anywhere, right? It's not also what I want. Just like Philip said, I mean, once you reach a certain level, if you want more sun in your life, why not go get more sun and hopefully see how you can do the business there as well, right?
Okay, so we are approaching to the end. As far as I can see, there's no more question from the audience. So we have 5 more minutes to make some conclusions. We agree about most of stuff, so there is no big need to make some conclusion. But I would like to take some take-home messages for young professionals and students who are watching. So they are starting their career, they are thinking about what to do. So what will be your suggestion, especially in the terms if they want to create their own jobs? For example, they have some idea for startup, where to go, to try it at home, to go in EU, or maybe go overseas, or if they are seeking for a good business in a smaller or bigger company, where to go. So we agree that travel is important. We agree that multicultural experience is important. So maybe some additional messages which you didn't send during this debate. Now it's opportunity to send.
Okay, maybe
Marin, we can.
Oh.
Okay, Phil.
Okay, maybe I can shortly start. I mean, I have a couple of, let's say, things that I would suggest to, let's say, young professionals entering the industry. So I would say, I mean, what I experience is, of course, as you're young, you finish university, you want to start making some money. But in the very beginning, I would just advise not to chase the money. You will definitely be tempted by better salaries to reach some positions or you know, sooner. Just go for a little bit more education, really focus on learning, bettering yourself, learning, you know, trying different things out, and the money will definitely follow. So this is one advice I would definitely say to young entrepreneurs. Also, I mean, what to mention is one thing definitely, yes, what Marin already mentioned is becoming more and more important for people, not only the money, but kind of the whole package. And this is in general that what I noticed for myself, working on things that can do good for the society, for example, fulfills me. And this is also privately from person to person. You know, just try to find something that will fulfill you and that you enjoy working, because every day you spend, most of your day you spend at work. And then if you're working on something that definitely fulfills you, it makes a very big difference. So yeah, these are kind of the biggest points that I would say. Marin?
I will try to put it very briefly. Anything you do, make sure that there is a clear component that you're investing in yourself, right? Especially the younger you are. Don't take a job that's just a job where you're going to get stuck. But also don't don't shoot too high and then miss, right? So I think whatever you do, you need to invest in yourself, whether it's education, whether it's your career. Always the choice should be first, am I growing? Am I doing this? Am I getting something significant out of this? And then, like Philip said, money will follow. Because years ago, and this is maybe funny, but it's true, I developed a personal sort of philosophy about this exact topic. And I realized one thing. So I'm lucky enough that I come, from a country that's relatively very nice to live in, right? So my backup plan is always to be a fisherman on the island of Rab, where I'm every summer. And I would be very happy with that. That's my backup plan. However, I would like to achieve, something great and, push myself further. But what I don't want to do is something in the middle. And that I decided a long time ago. So I don't want to be a passive actor in some company where I'm waiting for my day to end and then I can go do stuff that I want. No. Every hour of the day needs to be something that I want to do. And I love to work and I'm going to do anything necessary. And anything short of that, so anything short of something that allows you to really grow, invest in yourself and achieve whatever you want to achieve, anything short of that, for me, is a no-go. And then I just prefer to enjoy my life, being next to the sea and knowing that was my decision and I don't have to do anything, right? So I developed this sort of personal philosophy where it's going to be one way or it's going to be something smooth. But I don't want to do things that just for the sake of doing them, right?
Okay, Marin, thank you very much. And Luca, last minute is yours.
I mean, I can only reiterate what I just said, what I've said previously, and that is use every opportunity to travel, absolutely every opportunity. That's what we did, and I'm sad that we didn't do it anymore. When we were starting a business, we would, we would sleep on airbeds wherever we could, try to find a place where we could stand, to live while we were doing a conference or pitching something. So just, try to travel as much as you can. And I would spend my last dime on traveling in the early, just to get the experiences that I can. And one additional thing is at least in Croatia, there was a lot of talks about this. This program where actually people were motivated to start their businesses during college and build their businesses during college and start their startups during, immediately after they end the college. Unfortunately, the education in Croatia isn't as good compared to some other countries where this may be possible. So my advice would be to get some free experience by working for other folks in Croatia as much as you can, like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. Just to continue your education by being employed somewhere and then start your business, because it'll be much easier for you. You'll have much more experience and you'll know exactly what you need to do to be successful and what not to do, which is also equally as important. So good luck.
Okay, thank you very much, Filip, Marin, and Luka, for this really nice debate. I would say more chat than debate. Dear visitors, viewers, thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did, and enjoyed the rest of the conference. In the next hours and next 2 days, you will have opportunity to see some other debates as well as panel discussion and lectures. So good day.
Thanks, guys.